Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm out in my garden. I've been harvesting and cleaning out and weeding, and I have some room in my garden, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on my fall planting. So I thought I would show you what I have planned for this season. I'm located in zone 8, so my first frost date is usually around the beginning of November, give or take, and so depending on where you are located, you will need to check for your region as far as planting times and first frost dates. So I have about 11 plants that I'll be planting out in the garden. I have some that I'm going to just be seeding directly into the soil, and I'll go over that. And then I have some that I'm going to be starting inside in trays. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll show you what I got going on. So one of the first plants that I'll be planting is I'm going to get started on some greens. I have a mustard mix that I'll be using. I also have a romaine mix that I'll be planting and an arugula. These are not very long. They don't take very long. So I'll probably be planting them also again probably in September or so I can keep on getting lettuce greens, or might do an every 2 weeks planting of the lettuce. And these can go directly in the soil. You will just want to go ahead and spread. I usually just dig a little trench and then spread the seeds in that trench, and then I'll come back and check and go ahead and thin them out after they have popped up. You'll just want to make sure that you keep the soil nice and watered so that those can get started, but it's definitely warm enough outside that they will sprout. I'm also going to be planting them in a shady spot in my garden because they do like to bolt. Greens will like to bolt if it gets too hot. So that kind of protects them a little bit. So we'll see how that goes, and then we'll go on to our next item. I'll be planting are carrots. I have a cosmic purple and scarlet gnats. They take a little bit longer. They're more like 70 days. I will be planting them similarly like I did the lettuce greens, and I will be putting them in the same bed as I am the lettuce. So I will have carrots and lettuce. I have a tomato plant still growing in here, and some herbs, but other than that, there's not much else in this bed. Everything else has been harvested out. So you'll go ahead and I'll dig a little trench, also plant them, and then come back and thin them. Just make sure they keep moist. You will need to thin them. Let's see. You'll thin 1 to 2 inches mostly on the carrots. So just keep that in mind. You can also successfully plant them, or succession plant them. So you'll do maybe come back every 2 weeks and keep on planting another thing of carrots. So I'm going to be planting 2 more vegetables in this bed that I have cleared out. I've got some parsnips I'm going to try this year. We'll see. They can actually be overwintered, I believe. They're about 100 days to yield. I have a kind called turga. So we're going to do parsnips, and then I'm also going to plant some more radishes. The radishes can also be there. It's only about 30 days for radishes, so you can keep on popping them in every 2 weeks and get those all the way up until your first frost date. So we're going to get started on that. So the next thing I'm going to get started in the garden is I've got some beans, some bush beans. They're called contender. I also have some sugar snap peas that I'll probably be planting out into the garden. I might wait a little bit because they don't really like to get too hot. So, but beans and peas can also be started right now, depending on where you are and depending on the varieties you use. There are certain varieties that are shorter seasons so that they can be planted and do well in a northern climate. If you're in the south, depending on what you're planting, it might be too hot and you might need to wait a little bit longer for fall planting. So so I am in a bed where I have been harvesting potatoes out of. They're mainly harvest. I'll probably harvest the rest of those soon. They're kind of getting there. So in this bed where the potatoes have been planted and harvested, leeks really like to follow because they like the loose soil. So I'm going to go ahead and come in here, add probably a bag of some soil mix, or I also have some worm castings I might add in just to add some more nutrition back into the soil. And then I'm going to go ahead and follow the potatoes with some leeks. They will be planted about 1/2 inch deep and 6 to 8 inches apart and 1/2 foot apart. I'll probably do a couple rows of leeks here. And I really love leeks. I don't know if you guys have ever tried them in soup or anything, but I would suggest planting them. They do pretty good in the spring and again in the fall, and they're about 100 days. So now is a really good time to plant them if you are in zone 8. All right, I'm now in my upper garden area, and the last vegetable that I'm going to plant in the ground, like directly in the ground, is I'm going to plant another bed of potatoes for the fall. So Yukon Gold is what I'm going to use, and those ones are really good. So I'm just prepping a new bed in here, laying some straw, bringing in some dirt soil, and then hopefully I'll be planting those pretty soon. So seeds that I'm going to be planting, I'm actually going to be planting them in containers, just because it's easier to plant out after that. They're easier to start in containers and keep track of. So the first I have is broccoli. It's a purple sprouting. It's about 220 days, so it takes quite a while, but it does do pretty well into winter. Then I've got Brussels sprouts, Long Island, improved. Cabbage Golden Acre, and a cabbage Chinese, a Chinese cabbage. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those started in trays, and then after they get going, I'll put them into my garden in a couple different places in there. So. All right, so that's all I have for you this week. Hopefully that gave you some good ideas on what you can plant now to get a good fall harvest. And we'll see you next time. Bye. Bye.